Once again, this entire month of January and February, we'll talk about important issues in public policy that will be affecting our lives. The Virginia General Assembly Session 2023 is in full effect. And today, we'll talk about the Star Alert, an important opportunity for us to help save lives. It's Save the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Claville. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back. It's Stay in the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville. We want to thank you again for joining us on this beautiful Sunday, January 22nd, as we broadcast, as we always do, live from the campus of the Norfolk State University at WNSB Hot 91, the soul of VA. Once again, we cannot do what we do unless we have your support and we're allowed in order to do all the great things here at this great institution. So again, I want to thank you, the Spartan Nation, some of the greatest alumni out there in the world at the greatest HBCU in the world. And also those of you who are fans and partners of WNSB Hot 91. As always in the studio, we have with us our producer, DJ Scandalous, Marvin Folks on the wheels of steel, the hardest working man in radio. You can hear him every day, Monday through Friday from 2 to 6 p.m. Also on Saturday. And yes, on Sunday. He's in studio with us right now. Marvin, how's your week been so far?
My week has been, my week has been productive, Dr. Claville. It's been great, man. I just, second semester of my PhD in computer science, and just blessed to just be able to mix and mingle everything together, man, between tech and radio and music.
Absolutely. Again, we were just talking before the show, and in June, it'll be 3 years.
3 years.
3 years since Stay in the Water has been on the air. You and I have been together from day one.
We've done a lot, man. We've done a lot.
So it's a blessing. It's truly a blessing to do what we do. So all praise and honor to God for it. And again, just God puts people around you that He knows that you need.
That's right.
To go on your journey.
God makes no mistakes.
Absolutely. Well, I want to get right into this particular segment of the show. Like I said, every Sunday in the month of January and February, we're going to be going through the legislation and talking about public policy that is going to impact our lives. Right now in Richmond, the General Assembly legislative session is in full effect, and it's the shorter session. We have 2 sessions. We have a session in the odd year that is 30 days, and then in the even year, which is 60 days. And I'm not going to get into the reasons for that right now, but in this particular session, what we're doing is that we are like every session, laws are going back and forth. Well, not laws, but proposed bills are going back and forth and being discussed amongst stakeholders, legislators, to be voted on. They're introduced, they're voted on in committees, and they're voted and debated on the floor. Then they're voted to either become a bill or not, and then the governor signs it or he vetoes it, then it comes back, and so forth and so on. So it's something that I love to see, something I love to do. Public policy, politics has been my life for over half of my life, and it's a great process. But it's the process in which we live our lives, because laws and public policy dictate our lives. But today I want to talk about one important piece of legislation that is before the General Assembly. And this is HJ House Joint Resolution 525, HJ 525. And what it is, it's a study it's a proposed study in order to notify people when there has been an accident or hit and run, and that is no evidence out there to find them at the time. Very similar to Amber Alert or Blue Alert. And this is called the Star Alert, and it's in the memory of Alexis Starr Hicks. And I want to bring on today to talk about this someone who that this issue is near and dear to their heart. This is part of her family member, and I want her to come on and to tell the story of why the Star Alert is before us. Kayla Hicks, welcome to Stay the Water.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I talked about very, very briefly Alexis Starr Hicks and the proposed legislation that is before the General Assembly right now, titled HJ 525. It is for the study of a Star Alert program. And before we go into what this legislation is, because I'm going to talk about that in the second half, I want you to talk about why the Star Alert. And for those of you, you can actually look at this information at www.starralert.com. That's www.starralert.com. That's Star Alert, 2 R's.com. Kayla, why the Star Alert?
Well, as you said, that this is very close to me because this is our blended family, and Alexis Starr Hicks is my bonus baby girl, and Alexis was just so full of life. She's 25 years old when she was taken, and she's just a beautiful brown-skinned girl. She's intelligent, she's funny. She was loving. She was family-oriented. I mean, she just had a very, voice was just so sweet. And, I can't say enough about her. She's a Norfolk State student. And I know that her dream was to become a film director or a recording producer after graduating from NSU. And unfortunately, her dream was taken from her by a person that hit her and left her in the road to die. I'll never forget that moment. I'd taken that day, it was the first time, and me as a Black woman, I had never woken up and said I wanted to go kayaking in my life ever, not one day. But at 51, I was in a place in my life where I'm enjoying life and experiencing so many new things. And so I went out kayaking, and I left my phone that day. Because I myself didn't want to lose my iPhone in the water. So I figured I'd leave it home. And when I got back, I saw these missed calls and couldn't quite understand, where they were coming from. They were coming from my children, especially my daughter, Kimberly. Just kept calling. And then eventually, I got Alexis' dad on the phone, and he told me what had happened. And our whole world changed in a matter of seconds. There's no way to look back or no way to change it, no way to do anything other than just stand there in complete numbness. And, I'll just stop there, because I can use the whole segment talking about what it felt like, what it is like, and what she was, and, what I'm doing to maintain her memory, especially because she was such a loving and caring young lady.
Absolutely. And Kayla, you and I have known each other for over a decade, for some years now. And when you called me about this, I was shocked because of how everything took place. And I just want to acknowledge your courage to actually not just come on the show, but to really spearhead, this initiative in order to get something done. As a matter of fact, according to the facts of this particular case, Alexis, she passed away from her injury sustained by a hit-and-run driver in Norfolk, Virginia, on the 800 block of West Brambleton Avenue near EVMS and Norfolk General Hospital here in downtown Norfolk. Kayla, when you told me what had taken place, immediately I thought, well, we have cameras downtown. Immediately, I thought we have witnesses that saw this, and that person that unfortunately took the life of your bonus daughter, your family member, was definitely going to be held accountable. But then you advised me that none of that was the case. Tell me.
Yeah, it's very difficult, right? So it's hard for me because I'm telling you what's happening, and there's obviously an investigation going on. And in the beginning, when this first happened, because just a little bit about me for a second to explain why we're in this particular space. And as you said, we've known each other for years, and for years I've been working to promote a safe, inclusive workspace for Black women and girls to be given equal opportunities and compensation and are valued for their expertise and contributions in violence prevention, right? Because this typically is what I'm doing on a daily basis, and that is interacting with families that have lost their loved ones. Many of them have lost their only children to violence, and normally there's going to be gun violence or domestic violence or family violence where there was a gun involved. And so I spent my career, my days and nights for the past 10 years championing the cause for Black women and girls, because although it's still the number one cause of death for Black males when we talk about gun violence, it is on the rise for Black women, and we are consistently underrepresented in this space, overrepresented by someone presenting our stories, but not giving us the opportunity to move past any barriers that put us in leadership. And so I spend a considerable amount of time fighting the disparities that Black women face in these workspaces of violence. And I look at this as an act of violence. When you hit someone and then you leave them in the road to die, that is an act of violence. And so I became numb. And I, for the first time, didn't know how to fight for my Mr. Hunter. I just didn't know what to do. I mean, her mother and her father and myself, all of us are in the same place. Just don't know what to do. And I'm thinking, I'm a champion. I can gather thousands of people at any given second, and let's go storm Norfolk. Like, where is the news? I didn't see the news. I saw it one time, and then there was nothing. And for a while, I thought it was a Black thing. And then I realized that it was a real crisis thing that's happening across this nation. And in my heart, as I began to settle and realize that when I spoke with you and a few other friends, that my emotions were too high to take charge on this, and that I needed to really gather myself before I started running into the fire. And I called and I spoke with Congresswoman Lucy McBeth, and I spoke with a few state senators across the nation, and I spoke with so many stakeholders and decision makers that I know. And then I just knew in my heart, this one person would do this the right way. And that's when I called you to tell you what had happened and to ask you to help me, to more so be my translator, because there were too many words and emotions that I had that I was feeling that I couldn't get it out the right way. And within seconds, you were able to help me understand how important this was and what we needed to do to move the Star Alert into reality. And when that Star Alert came out of me, it only came out of me because I began to realize how many people have lost their loved ones to a hit-and-run driver in the Commonwealth, and then also across the nation. And then I began to understand what work needed to be done, and Alexis Starr Hicks was not going to die in vain, and nobody was going to forget her name. I wasn't going to allow this beautiful brown-skinned girl at 25 years old to be forgotten because someone forgot to take the responsibility to stop and make sure that she was okay. They left her there. So here we are with Star Alert, because there's nothing like it in the nation, and I'll let you speak to that. Some of the things that slowed me down as a private investigator and a retired bail enforcement agent, well, as a bounty hunter, and I'm also a CEO of a nonprofit organization, obviously, that represents Black women and girls. But to stop and realize that there's nothing in place that would notify the local body shops or repair shops or even the police reporting systems. You know, we have lots of police chiefs supporting us in this initiative, that there's no communication. Like Norfolk Police Department didn't put out an alert to all of the local police departments to be on the lookout for what they believe is a potential individual that ran her over. There's nothing out in the public about this. And so that's where we came up with the Star Alert, is because just like the Amber Alert, the Ashanti Alert, the Silver Alert, and all the other of the, we have one other alert I can't skip my mind just right now, but we need to have this as law, not just the state, but this needs to be a federal law that where someone is, there's a fatality or a severe injury, there needs to be a Star Alert mandate that functions just like the Amber Alert, and I'll stop there.
Absolutely. It's Stay the Water. I'm your host, Dr. Eric Claville, and today we're talking about, just like every Sunday in January and February, important legislation and policy that is proposed in the General Assembly here in the Commonwealth of Virginia that will have an impact on your life. Today, we're talking with Kayla Hicks, who is the driver behind the Star Alert program. You know, the Star Alert, I want to tell our listeners a little bit about, what this is because, well, before I do this, I really wanted people to understand who Alexis was, right? Because a lot of times we get wrapped up in the law, but we don't understand the driver behind it. And this is just not something, words on a piece of paper, but this came about, and hopefully as it goes through this legislative process, it will become law to where it came about because of somebody's life was impacted. And obviously, Alexis was a phenomenal young lady that had a phenomenal future ahead of her. A Norfolk State Spartan, a student here, and but we know that her life has not already been in vain. And because of this, more lives will be changed. But the Star Alert mandate would be like the Amber Alert for missing minors, Silver Alert for missing seniors, and Ashanti Alert for persons missing between 18 and 64 years of age. Also, the Blue Alert is activated when a law enforcement officer is missing or a suspect for a crime involving death, severe injury. A law enforcement officer has been apprehended. The Star Alert will function like the current emergency systems that disseminate information about the Amber, Silver, Ashanti, and Blue Alerts, except this would send data to auto body repair shops and automobile shops that offer paint and collision repair services. And believe it or not, and Kayla, when you and I talked and you said, hey, I think this is a good idea. And I said, well, clearly there's got to be other policies or legislation on the books in other states and we can incorporate it here. But when we talked and we found currently there is no such law on the books across the country. What was your thought when you found that there was no such law like that?
Thank God I had you on the team. That was my thought. That was it. I just knew that with you heading this, that you were going to help make a difference to save lives, because it's what you do. You use information, right? I used to hear growing up, education is key, and it is. It's essential. And me being around you for so long, knowing that you are an evidence-based individual with a holistic approach, because it's very important. It was first disbelief, but then it was like, thank God I've got Eric Claville leading this. And, I'm 100% confident it's the right place to be and you're the right person to be doing it.
Well, as we were talking about earlier with, I was talking with Marvin, I said, God makes no mistakes. He puts people in your lives for not just sometimes for the moment and sometimes for later and sometimes for your whole journey, because he knows what's coming forth. And again, if this is the last piece of legislation that I'm able to help support and move through the process, I think that everything that I've done in life, education-wise, knowledge-wise, I think this would definitely be worth it. So I'm definitely humbled and grateful to be able to be a part of this. When we talk about the process, and I want our listeners to understand that, there are a lot of great ideas out there. I get people, you have great ideas, the listeners have great ideas. We all have great ideas. But if you're not able to bring those ideas into and create it into mold it into a product, and not just a product, but then get it through the chains and the steps in order for this to become a reality, then it's just a good idea that sits on the shelf. So immediately when we discussed the Amber Alert, I said, okay, we've got to make sure that there are individuals who are locked in, individuals who are on the team that will get this done. And first of all, our good friend, common friend, Jasper Hendricks, who is an alum of Norfolk State University, and currently he is a candidate for city council in Nashville, Tennessee. He's worked through the legislature, through Congress, the whole nine, and he is definitely one that we relied upon to help through this process. And then you have other supporters. We have the former chief of Norfolk Police Department, Larry Boone, current Commonwealth's Attorney Anton Bell, and Lori Haas, who is part of public health as it relates to gun violence and evidence-based research. So those are the supporters that are part of this Amber Alert legislation. But not just supporters, we have to get people within the legislature that see that this opportunity is a great opportunity for not just the persons affected, but for the entire Commonwealth. And from that, we looked at the slate of legislators, and the person that we thought would be the champion for this is Norfolk State alum and current delegate in the House, Candy King. She is the chief patron of this HJ 525 Staralert program. And also Delegate Nadarius Clark, that represents district here in Hampton Roads, Delegate Elizabeth Guzman, Delegate Irene Shin, and Delegate Marcus B. Simon. With that being the case, I want to talk a little bit about what this program is. Now, keep in mind that there are steps that we have to go through in order for introduce legislation to become law. So this is a multi-step process, but I'll break it down in these several steps. We had the idea. The idea was then presented to Delegate King, and then from that point, it was then sent to the drafters of the legislation in the House in order to draft a draft bill. And then from that, the draft bill was then approved by us, and then that draft bill was then introduced, or it's called file or pre-file, into the House. And with that, HJ, it was assigned a number. So it's HJ 525 Star Alert Program. Department of Transportation to study the need for an alert program. And what this program does, it basically directs the Department of Transportation to study the need for an alert program to be known as the Star Alert Program, to notify vehicle repair shops of nearby reported traffic incidents and crashes, and to 1, investigate the cost of implementing such a program, 2, collect traffic incident data, 3, investigate the effect of such a program on vehicle repair shops, 4, investigate the effect of such a program on the Department of the State of Police procedures and practices, and 5, to determine an appropriate alert radius from a reported traffic incident site to vehicle repair shops and the feasibility of widespread use of such a program in all areas of the Commonwealth. Now, Kayla, you and I, we talked, and the reason why this study is so important is because it's just not even though this is a tragic situation and incident that took place and lives were changed, what's going to now be attached to this is the data, the research that will be irrefutable. You cannot refute it as it relates to the issue or the need for this type of alert system. Once that study is done, then that study will be provided as evidence, and then a bill will be drafted and then introduced in order to create the Star Alert Program. And then from that, once it's introduced and then becomes law here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, This now can also go, this study can be used across the country in all other 49 states. And not only that, but also on the federal level in Congress in order to implement something equivalent to it. So when we think about, efforts, when we think about initiatives, when we think about ideas, every great movement starts with one idea and then action. One thing about this action process is that you got to be committed to it, and you have to see it through, and you have to know exactly how to work through the process. Currently, this legislation is introduced in the House, the Committee on House Rules session, and is currently there to be heard. And this particular committee meets at the behest of the Speaker of the House, which is Delegate Todd Gilbert. And the members on this committee are delegates, of course, the chair, Delegate Gilbert, Delegate Kilgore, Delegate Orrick, Delegate Knight, Delegate Austin, Delegate Byron, Delegate Bell, Wilt, Wiebert, Ranson, O'Quinn, Head, Batten, Delegate Bagby, which is also the chair of the Virginia Legislative Black Caucus, an alum here at Norfolk State University, Delegate Philicorn, Delegate Watts, Delegate Sickles, and also Delegate Herring. In order for this legislation to become law, it has to be bipartisan. And that means that there are no D's and no R's, but there are simply the people of the Commonwealth. And that's what the Staralert program is about, protecting the people of the Commonwealth. We're going to continue to track this legislation. Like I said, this has just been introduced. It's going to be argued on and debated and presented in committee and eventually on the floor and referred hopefully to the Department of Transportation. So we're going to keep you posted on it. But in our closing moments, Kayla, I want you to just a moment, just a few seconds, to talk about your hope for the Staralert program.
It's my hope that people that are listening to you will share this story, share all the information you just provided. Go to, staralert.com, STARR alert.com, and call their legislators, because I mentioned before that I thought this was a black thing, like another black or brown body that's going to get no notification. Nobody's going to hear anything about it unless it's negative. But this is a people thing, like you said. It's not a party line thing. This is an issue that's affecting people that are walking, riding a bike, just going out for a jog or a run or on a scooter. It is showing that this hit and run crisis is only going to get worse. We have hundreds of families. If there are families out there, anyone that knows anyone that's been impacted by a hit-and-run driver, reach out to us. We need the support, but we definitely need people to call the General Assembly in Richmond, Virginia, and start talking to these legislators that Eric mentioned, and also beyond that. Like this is about saving lives, Absolutely. All of our lives. Just can't ignore it. So thank you for having me on, and my hopes are that the Staralert will be passed out of committee. And, we'll be looking at this as, at some point, a federal law, not just the Virginia, Commonwealth law.
Absolutely. Again, we'll continue to track this legislation as it goes through the process. But once again, we want to thank all of you. Kayla, I want to thank you for joining us, and all of you for joining us here on Stay the Water, where we bring movers, shakers, and policymakers to discuss issues important to you, the community. As always, be great, God bless, and we'll see you next week.